Even though it's only been 7 months since 28 years later shocked the world, there's a whole lot you might have forgotten about Spike's adventure through an infected Britain. Here's what you might have missed, and what you can expect when we return to the Bone Temple. Spoilers ahead for all 3 movies. What if we could cure anger like it was a disease? What if scientists found a way to rid humanity of our most violent and destructive impulses? You'd think that sounds too good to be true, right? Well, you'd be right. That's where the 28 Days series starts, with researchers at the Cambridge Primate Research Center experimenting on chimpanzees to make rage a thing of the past. When animal rights activists break into the center, they're shocked to find a room full of apes undergoing various experiments. They're spotted by a scientist who frantically warns them that the chimps are infected.
In order to cure, you must first understand.
Infected with what?
Rage.
As it turns out, the researchers genetically engineered a highly contagious inhibitor that isolates anger instead of removing it, and gave it to all the apes so they could study the effects. The activists don't seem to believe him, so they free the animals anyway. Sure enough, one bite is all it takes for the virus to spread from primate to human, turning the activists and the scientists into rage-fueled zombies that leave the facility to infect the rest of the island. If there's one thing a virus knows how to do, it's spread, and since the rage virus is a mutated version of Ebola, it's particularly effective.
It was the blood. Or something in the blood.
Carriers of the virus are motivated purely by rage and the desire to spread the infection. They're strong, perceptive, and above all, fast. It's only 15 days before Britain is officially placed under quarantine by NATO and the United Nations. Evacuation efforts begin in earnest, but some people are left behind to fend for themselves. People like Jim, the protagonist of 28 Days Later, played by Cillian Murphy, who fell into a coma pre-apocalypse before awakening to an eerily empty London. Murphy doesn't appear in 28 Years Later, which is essentially a standalone story, but his return in the Bone Temple brings everything full circle. So how did Jim manage to survive? Since the Bone Temple is primarily focused on continuing the narrative of 28 Years Later, we won't take too long to recap Jim's terrifying journey through a fallen Britain. After he wakes up and learns firsthand why London looks so deserted, Jim is rescued by fellow survivors Mark and Selena. They give him the rundown on the very eventful month that he missed, telling him that rage spread in small towns before making its way to urban areas.
By the time they tried to evacuate the cities, it was already too late. The infection was everywhere.
What follows is a rude awakening. Jim learns that his family members took their own lives rather than succumb to the rage virus, lights a candle in their memory that inadvertently attracts the infected to their location, then watches Mark get turned and immediately killed by Selena. The 2 remaining survivors then link up with 2 more, a father and daughter named Frank and Hannah. They have the scoop on a place where the infected can't reach them, a radio broadcast giving the location of a military blockade.
Salvation is here. The answer to infection is here. If you can hear this, you're not alone.
The 4 set out to reach salvation, only to find the blockade occupied only by corpses. A drop of infected blood ends up in Frank's eye, but he's killed by hidden soldiers just as he fully succumbs to rage. The remaining 3 are taken to a compound run by Major Henry West, which turns out to be a trap. But the trap isn't for Jim, it's for his companions, who West plans to hold captive to ensure the future of the human race.
What do 9 men do except wait to die themselves? I moved us from the blockade, I set the radio broadcasting, and I promised them women.
Jim, being a halfway decent guy, isn't okay with that at all, so he's subdued and led into the forest to be shot. He escapes, unleashes the infected upon the compound, and causes enough chaos to rescue Selena and Hannah. They make it to their car where West is waiting for them in the back seat, shooting Jim before suffering a very painful-looking death. Selena is able to save Jim's life, and 28 days later, they and Hannah have made new lives for themselves in the countryside. They send a message to a passing jet, hoping that it'll come back to rescue them someday. That's 28 Days Later in a nutshell, but it's only the beginning of the story. Given that none of the characters from 28 Weeks Later seem to appear in either of its sequels, the only context from it that you'll need for the Bone Temple concerns the British quarantine. Months after the start of the rage outbreak, NATO forces attempt to set up a safe zone called District 1 in London and fail in spectacular fashion. The infected are too angry to eat and start dying of starvation, so the military is able to drive them out. But of course, everything goes wrong. As NATO continues to try and return civilization to Britain, an asymptomatic carrier of the rage virus accidentally infects her husband within District 1. It spreads so dramatically that the Air Force is forced to blow it all up. Repatriation efforts stop after that. Finally, the end of the film teases that the infected managed to make it all the way to Paris. Despite that, it's immediately clear in 28 Years Later that they were driven off the mainland entirely. 28 years later begins in the Scottish Highlands, as little Jimmy Crystal and his many blonde sisters watch Teletubbies in the year 2002. That is, until his frantic aunt rushes in and orders him to stay still and quiet. It's Outbreak Day, something that Jimmy learns when several infected break into the room and attack his siblings. All he can do is watch as his family succumbs to the rage virus. So Jimmy runs, making his way to the local church to warn his minister father about the coming horde as the infected give chase. When he gets there, not only does his dad already know, but he's very, very excited about it.
So scared, Dad. I know Mum's dead.
Oh no, son. Not dead. Saved.
Jimmy's father gives him his cross necklace and tells him to always keep it with him just before the infected break through the windows. Jimmy manages to hide, but he can only watch as his father happily accepts the gift of rage.
Yes, my children! Yes!
28 years later, a small community has managed to sustain itself on the island of Lindisfarne, just off the east coast of the British mainland. They managed to keep the infected at bay by putting up a giant gate at the end of a long causeway that can only be used when the tide is low. Within this community live Jamie, Isla, and Spike, a father, a mother, and a 12-year-old boy, respectively. It's a big day for Spike. It's his first hunt, meaning he'll finally be leaving Lindisfarne to kill infected with his dad. There's something else on Spike's mind, though. His mom. She's incredibly sick, and no one seems to be giving him any straight answers as to what she's suffering from. When she's reminded that Spike is about to leave the island for the first time, she's not exactly supportive of the idea.
What the are you talking about?
All
Have
right,
you
stop.
gone crazy? He's a baby!
He's 12.
She's not in any condition to stop them, of course. The rest of the community is more supportive, wishing Spike luck as he and Jamie head to the gate. They're greeted there by the town's leadership committee and reminded of their rules regarding the mainland.
If you leave, you can come back, but if you don't come back, no one is permitted to go and find you. There are no rescues, no exceptions.
And with that, Spike and Jamie walk down the causeway to the mainland, setting the stage for a truly twisted coming-of-age story. It's not long before Jamie and Spike encounter their first infected. This one is of a larger and slower variety that crawls across the ground eating worms. Looks like they finally figured out how to eat.
Let's go get your first kill.
Spike's first arrow sails through the air and embeds itself in the crawler's neck. Before it dies, it lets out a scream that alerts its friends in the surrounding area. It's a perfect chance for Jamie to show off his archery skills, but he stops himself before shooting an infected child. From there, Jamie leads Spike to an abandoned house to scavenge for supplies, but all they find is a frisbee. That and an infected hanging from the ceiling by its feet with a familiar name carved into its back.
There's a lesson for you here.
When it turns out not to be dead, Jamie makes Spike kill it. After that, the two head back outside, only to find something even more chilling. A severed deer head placed high up in a tree, spine still attached. It's not the kind of thing that a normal infected tends to do.
What? An alpha did that.
It seems that at some point in the past 28 years, the infected established a sort of animalistic leadership structure, with groups being led by incredibly strong alphas. One of them is nearby, and he doesn't appreciate having interlopers in his territory. Jamie and Spike immediately encounter the alpha in his pack, making a mad dash for safety as the infected follow close behind. When they can't run anymore, they start firing arrows, but the pressure is too high for Spike to hit any of his targets. Still, they manage to find refuge in another abandoned building. All they can do now is wait it out, and that means missing low tide. As night falls, Spike notices a fire in the distance, but his dad claims to know nothing about it. They try to sleep, but they're awoken by the attic collapsing when a herd of deer runs by. Jamie's plan is to head back to the causeway, where the water is about shin deep at the moment.
We move fast but quiet. You see that alpha? Just run straight for the causeway and over it. All right? You stop for nothing. Go!
That's exactly what happens. The alpha makes it to the beach once they've started down the causeway, meaning they only have one place to go. Things look bad when Spike trips and falls, but he and Jamie manage to make it home with a little help from their neighbors and a flaming ballista. Now that's gotta hurt. Spike is greeted with a hero's welcome upon his return, but he's not a huge fan of how Jamie exaggerates what happened to impress everyone. He's definitely not a huge fan of his father's affair with the town's teacher, which he learns about after slipping away from the celebration. Once he gets home, Spike has a conversation with Jamie's friend Sam about what really happened during his hunt. When he mentions the fire, Sam tells him what his father wouldn't, that it was started by a doctor named Kelson who lost his mind after the outbreak.
Dr. Kelson is odd.
Even though Dr. Kelson hasn't had a medical practice for 28 years, Spike latches onto the fact that he's a doctor and becomes convinced that he can heal his mom. So the next day, Spike confronts Jamie about the fire and demands the truth. Jamie admits that he encountered Dr. Kelson one time years ago, and what he saw shook him to his core.
Didn't like it. Corpses. Hundreds.
Needless to say, Jamie never went back, and he's not particularly interested in changing that. But Spike keeps pushing back, demanding that Jamie do whatever it takes to keep Isla alive. Jamie hits Spike. Spike pulls a knife on Jamie. Then Spike decides he's had enough and hatches a plan to get Isla to Dr. Kelson. He distracts the gatekeepers, grabs his mom, and leads her down the causeway. Given Isla's delusions and memory problems, she doesn't realize what Spike is doing until they're well into the mainland. After a rest stop and a late-night encounter with a crawler, the two find themselves pursued by infected and try to hide in the ruins of a gas station. What's inside isn't much safer, though. Decades of gas buildup turn the building into an ultra-flammable death trap. Just when it looks like there's no way out, they're rescued by a soldier who lights the place up. Spike and Isla survive by following the soldier's directions, but he's not in such a helpful mood once they manage to escape the building. His name is Eric, and he's the lone survivor of a NATO patrol boat that sank off the British coast. They don't have much choice but to travel together. Eric tells Spike about the civilized world, which seems to be doing perfectly fine without the United Kingdom. They follow Isla to an abandoned train, inside of which is an infected woman who somehow managed to get pregnant. Despite Eric's protests, she helps deliver the baby, which miraculously appears not to carry the rage virus. Eric isn't having it, killing the infected mom and pointing his gun at the newborn. Before Eric can fire another shot, he's grabbed by an alpha and has his head ripped right off his body. Just before he can get to Spike, Isla, and the baby, they're saved by the man they came all this way to see. Dr. Kelson is quite happy to have visitors, mostly so he can show off his handiwork. For over a decade, he's worked on the Bone Temple, a monument constructed from the remains of the dead. That's why he's had all those bodies lined up by the fire. He was preparing to use them as the building blocks of his grand creation. Naturally, he adds Eric's skull to the pile. Kelson gives Isla a medical examination, coming to the conclusion that she has late-stage cancer throughout her body and brain. She'd already figured that out herself, but she couldn't find the strength to explain her impending death to her son.
Too scared. I needed someone else to tell you, but no one did.
After Kelson gives Spike a sedative to keep him from lashing out, Isla gives a tearful hug goodbye to her son and has Kelson shoot her with a blow dart so she can die painlessly. Once it's worn off, the doctor tells Spike that he has a morbid yet vitally important job for him.
Find a place for her. Best one of all.
There's only one place worthy of Isla's skull, so Spike climbs all the way up the Bone Temple and puts her on the very top where she belongs. Ascending the Bone Temple is a cathartic experience for Spike, but after that, it's time for him and the baby to return home. Except he's not quite ready to do that yet. He names the infant after his mom and leaves her at the Lindisfarne gates with a note explaining her situation and promising to return eventually. Seemingly let down by the dishonesty of the adults in his life, Spike feels the need to make it on his own. His dad isn't very happy about it. Despite Spike's best efforts, things on the mainland don't usually go the way you plan them. 28 days or so after leaving the Bone Temple, he's in the middle of killing infected when a suspiciously friendly blonde man and his similarly styled companions offer him some help. With Spike's permission, the group jumps into action to fight the infected with blades, nunchucks, and parkour. Once they've finished having their fun, their leader formally introduces himself as the one, but not only, Jimmy. And cut to credits. Yes, that's how 28 years later ends, with a shocking cliffhanger as Spike joins up with a cult inspired by disgraced British entertainer Jimmy Savile. When the movie came out, there was no guarantee that it would actually get a sequel, let alone two. But thankfully, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is hitting theaters just 7 months after its predecessor. You can expect the story to pick up right where it left off, with much more Jimmy and even more Kelson.
Was this all you're doing?
It is.
Are you Old Nick?
Old Nick? You mean Satan?
As Kelson continues his work and searches for a cure to the virus, Spike learns the same lesson that Jim did in 28 Days Later. Humans are the real monsters. Jimmy isn't exactly a selfless and benevolent leader, considering his insistence that his followers adopt his name and his hair, and all the violence, of course.
What's your name?
Spike?
No. I think your name is Jimmy.
With no sign of Jamie in the trailers for the Bone Temple, it doesn't seem like anybody is coming to rescue Spike this time around. If the ending of 28 years later is any indication, it's pretty much impossible for anyone to predict what horrors might still be yet to come.
Are you ready?